Oh, hold on. Good morning, sunshine. Bueno, good afternoon, sunshine. Welcome to your FBCA class brought to you by Betsy, who cannot talk today. If you stare at her in the screen, you will see that she's a little swollen, and I can't do anything to make her laugh or talk too much, but I always make her laugh. So let's get started. Is there anybody that would like to say a prayer today? Any volunteers? Okay, so I'll go. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear God, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the gift of gathering together with the intention of doing whatever we can to make ourselves better so that we can be better for our families and for the people that interact with us. In doing so, we find your spirit within us and we're able to present you, God, to everybody that we meet along the way. Help us to be more like you each and every day. We ask you to bless Betsy as she recovers. Help her to recover quickly so that she can resume. Pray for each and every one of the intentions that we have in our heart, for those suffering, for those less fortunate, and just pray for a fruitful and wonderful class. In your name we pray. Amen.
And for Angel's recovery too.
Oh, and for Angel. So is this everybody for today? Is this us? I suppose. Hello, everybody. Hi, April. It's good to see you.
Hello, sorry. I can hear you now. Earlier, I can't. Thank you.
So we're in our class for attachment theory and family systems theory, and Betsy is not giving the class, and this is because she had a gum graft done in her mouth. So they took skin from I guess somewhere else in your mouth and grafted onto the top of your mouth and grafted onto the bottom. So she's swollen and uncomfortable, and they have advised her not to talk too much. And I'm sure that Aline is super happy to have her quiet for a few days. So she is gonna jump in during question and answer because she's the expert. I have prepared all my notes, and will do the best that I can. But without further ado, we're gonna begin. The first order of business is, have you guys booked your mentors? And if so, has anybody booked their mentors at all? Okay,
When you
so
say
that,
book,
say it
is there
again.
something we're supposed to, when you say book, is there something we're supposed to do? Or I
So
thought we
you're
were,
supposed to reach out to your mentor. The mentors are the ones that you were introduced to a couple of classes ago. You were supposed to pick one, reach out to them. Did they pick Betsy, or you chose it for them?
I
Okay.
thought, oh,
So if you need any support with that or you have any questions, I can help you. We can have April send you their emails. Betsy, put
Oh
there
yeah,
the
I
list
have
of
the
the
list.
mentors.
Yeah, I have the list.
You have
Let
the
me
list.
give. Yep.
So the mentor is the person that you're going to reach out to. They're offering their services for free. And basically, it's like coaching throughout the time that you're doing the cohort or the classes. They're going to give you, you're going to ask them questions. They'll coach you through anything that you're going through. It's awesome because they've all been through it. So they can give you help with whatever it is that you're struggling with, or if you don't understand something. So you should reach out because it's a free service that you're getting, and it's like basically free coaching. So if you haven't already done so, reach out to them and schedule something with them. Also, Betsy's gonna assign coaches for next week. These are your peer coaches and your peer clients. So what Betsy has asked is that you email her with a subject line, coach/client. Wait. Oh, we'll put this in the chat in WhatsApp. April will send the link.
Uh,
Yeah. So So you do it right now. Email Betsy with who you want as your coach and who you would like. Do they pick their client or just who they want as their coach?
April, were you able to do the survey or not yet?
Yeah, I'm done with it. So, okay, wait. Right now, I'm gonna send you the form, and then below that is the list of coaches with their bio, with their calendar, and with their email, and with their phone number. Wait, give me a moment for here.
So instead of writing an email, April will send you a little survey that we can do right here, where you put your first choices for coaches and for clients. That way, when I assign, I can consider that.
Sorry, I'm a little,
Survey.
when you
Do you
say
want us doing that now
clients,
or at the end of this class?
I'm gonna
Let's
send
do
it
it
in
now.
WhatsApp. This is the survey.
So April's sending it on the chat. So the
On the
mentors,
WhatsApp.
you don't have to do right now, but let's do the coaches right now. So the mentors, let's leave it up to you guys to do when we're done today. And then let's have you guys send Betsy an email. April's sending you the list of well, I guess it's all of us here in the academy so that you can pick who you would like to coach you and who you would like to coach. And then Betsy will do her best to align you with the people that you chose. And if it's not possible, God will pick somebody for you that is meant for you. Because Betsy doesn't choose, it's God. So if you could take a few minutes now to look through what April's sending. The coaches are different from the mentors in that the coaches you're going to meet with once a week, right? Once a week or as many times as you see fit. This is going to go towards the hours that you need to become a certified coach. So every time that you meet, you're logging hours. On top of the hours that you're getting for being here in the class, you also are going to acquire hours by coaching each other. So every time you coach somebody, you're getting hours. And when they coach you, you're also getting hours. Because in order to become a certified coach, you need 100 hours at the end of the cohort. So this is going to be your opportunity to do so.
And Evelyn, you're still doing this because we want you to receive support throughout the entire process here. And that's the one-on-one support that you get. So you're going to be coached by someone else. Like, for example, like when you went through the situation with your daughter, you could call your coach. You have someone there for you who knows your story and is dedicated just to you. And then you are supporting someone else because these are tools and skills that you're going to be using with your family, with your loved ones, with your employees. So we want to make sure that you also have the experience of putting into practice the skill of coaching someone else. That's why we do it for both the faith and growth and the life coach certification. The difference is that the life coach certification has an additional session a month, which is going to be tomorrow, where they're coaching each other for feedback. So just, sorry, go ahead.
so the person that I write in that I want to coach is one of us, right? Like one of the ones that are on the cohort. Okay.
April, can you please send us the directory? Oh, you did. I'm going to put the directory of this cohort so that you guys have, I put it in the chat on what's on in here on Zoom, but I'm going to put it in the, oh, April did it or no? Wait. Yep, April did it.
Yeah,
So it's in WhatsApp and it's in the chat here so that you know the people who are in this cohort because not everybody is live today. And just as a review, the people you will choose from are Ana Maria, Angel, April and Betsy, no? Ceci, Debla, Elizabeth, Evelyn, Gigi, Mariana, and Marilyn.
So everybody's good? You guys did it all?
Cintia, una preguntita. Donde dice my first option as coach to coach me? No, ¿verdad?
They're picking who they want to coach them? Or they're picking who they want to coach?
No, pero
Wait, you're on mute, Betsy.
So my first option as coach, to someone to coach me. That's why I was specific por eso. So, ¿quién tú quieres que te haga coaching a ti? And then my first option as client is that I am going to coach them.
Gracias.
Okay, so any other questions about that? And if you guys can do that now, have it sent out now, that would be better. So that we don't have to wait for later. So if you did, just give me a thumbs up so that I know, yeah, you're done and it's sent. I'm gonna write it in the chat, Betsy, so that whoever's not here, they can start thinking about it too, no?
I sent it on the WhatsApp.
Oh, you did?
April 9th.
Okay. Got it. No. Mute, you're on mute.
Muted.
Everything is this cohort only. You're going to coach someone in this cohort. You're going to be coached by someone in this cohort. The mentorship is a part. That's like deeper mentorship. So if you're still struggling with something, you can go to your mentor and process further or deeper. And that the mentor is like once a month, right? Like whereas your coach is weekly.
Weekly.
So the mentorship, in my case, we had established a certain system already. I don't sign up for that.
No, then you already have your you already chose your mentor and you've already met with your mentor. Yeah.
However, if there's someone else that you feel you would benefit from their wisdom, you're welcome to have more than one mentor.
Oh,
It's just mentor will, will give you up to, it's I believe in abundance. So it's that mindset of like the recommended is one session, one mentor a month. And if you think like Mariana, for example, booked Emily because she wants like a little support in the business side and some clarity on that. And she booked Alexandra because she wanted to process some things that she felt Alexandra would be able to support her with. So the recommended is one, what I promise is one, but they're willing and eager, and I don't think they're being bombarded. We're not going to be abusing them. So if at any point you want to have a session with someone else, you can, right? Like just feel like whatever support you want, we want you to get. That's the main thing.
awesome.
My phone is giving me a hard time to do it, so can I do it later today?
Of course.
Okay.
Claro que sí.
Gracias.
And then we are going to success file. Did you guys do that on the last class? I wasn't here, but did you do success filing in the last class?
I didn't call it that, the check-ins, like sharing which ways your life is changing and you're integrating this information.
So I love the idea of success filing because it gives you a minute to like stop and think, okay, I started my habits, I started new routines, I'm starting new daily practices. And oftentimes what will happen is we'll start them, we'll screw up one day, and then like we're really hard on ourselves when we screw up. But we really can go back and be like, Concho, I did it. I did it on Monday, I did it on Tuesday, I messed up on Wednesday, and then you can look at the conversations you're having at home with your family, the interactions, all of the things that are going on, and you get the opportunity to be like, well, because I know I learned psychoanalytic theory and I'm understanding attachment theory, instead of responding the way I usually do, I responded differently. And so those are like the little successes that happen along the way. And you'll notice as you learn different things throughout the cohort that you're going to stop when something is happening or observe things happening, and you're going to respond differently. So at the beginning of each class, we like to do success filing, and that can be from the successes that we have in doing our habits and getting all those things done, or success in relationships, or it's going to turn into, I'm really struggling with something, and that's where the life coaching will start happening, which is super cool because we all have something to share. We all have something that like at our personal meet and greet at Margie's house ended up happening for me. Those are a lot of beautiful moments will come out of the success finding. Oftentimes we don't get through success finding or struggles because it's so fruitful. It creates such good stuff for the class. So does anybody have anything that they can think of that's a success? Ceci.
Okay, I don't know if this is success, but it's just what happened to me today. And like yesterday, there was so much content. I was like, oh my God, I have so much to talk about, and I leave so much coaching in the family thing. But this is something else. That's another topic. But what happens to me is like I've tried to do kind of like Elizabeth, like I enjoy my mornings of like my morning coffee. I read some books, I'll reflect, whatever, and then like then I'll go walking and it's like 10 or 11, like it's later. And because of the class and I need to get things done and I've been going back to work, I've been skipping the walking, and the walking for me it's like just very therapeutic. So I've been waking up early, like 6:30 to have like my coffee, reflection, and then I go for my walk and I'm able to do the things. So I'm like all like, but it's good because I'm actually getting things done because I'm more of a morning person than I am a night person. And then today I realized I was like reading some of the reflections that what happens to me is, like I'm trying to do that examination of conscience at night, like, oh, where did I see God? Was there a little miracle? Was I good to someone in this instance? And a lot of times throughout the day, it's like, go, 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 go. And I just forget, what I read, or I forget. So I put an alarm on my phone today at like 11 or 11:30 and at 3 or 3:30 as like a reminder to be like, oh yeah, let me check. I'm supposed to be like godlike and look for God in other people. So that's what I did today as like a reminder of like that I'm supposed to do that. I want to do that. Like I wanted to like a wake up, like, wait, live your life with intention. And what are you doing? So that's what I did.
It's like a pattern interrupt, like you interrupt your autopilot to be like, okay, you're bringing yourself to the present moment. So for sure, success for sure. You created time. Time is abundance. You created more time in waking up earlier so that you could continue doing what fills your cup. So 100%, that's a success. That's amazing. Good.
Actually a great idea because we get wrapped up with so much during the day that so many things, and then you like what you really want to focus on, the whole day passes by. Like I started putting, believe it or not, drink water on my alarm because it will get to like 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then I was like, oh my God, I didn't drink water today, and I was drinking water, and then I would go to the bathroom all night. I'm like, no, I have to drink water during the morning time because that's when but the whole morning will go by 2, 3, 4 o'clock, and I wouldn't have had an ounce of water. So
because you're on
actually a great idea.
autopilot. So that is a great idea. Alarms for whatever. We just need those alarms.
But the bad thing is that my alarm's going off. Drink water, pray, go do
this. Every minute on the minute, there's a reminder. That's good. So what are your successes? Evelyn.
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh. Actually, I have an amazing one, I think. So my husband and I went to Maine.
Nice.
My husband and I went to Maine this weekend. Well, this past week. That's why I was on the cart in the last cohort. And so obviously Betsy already knows this about me, but I'm very like practical and very like to the point. And it's like, okay, what do we need to get done? Let's do this, let's do that. And my husband is actually like the emotional one, the one that, you know, is romantic and like everything is like a big deal. And I'm very like, okay, like what do we need to do? What do we have to, and like for me, feelings are like, okay, yeah, okay, you feel sad, but okay, like that's it. Like we have to move on. Like it's like and I've really been trying to, as Betsy called it, give him that space that he needs for like even processing. And I was doing my homework over the weekend, and he was kind of listening to what I was listening to on the computer while he was in the other room. And he started talking to me at night about something that he wanted to tell our son. Our son is going, you know, he's 19, so he's not a teenager anymore, but he's not an adult, so he's in that transition stage, which, you know, for most of you, you know that transition state is a little hard. So he came to me and he was like, oh no, when I get back, I'm gonna tell Bradley that he can't do this anymore because, you know, I see how I used to be in him, and he's being jerky and he's doing this. And he was like, you know, telling me like all of these things that he was gonna talk to Bradley about, and that's it. Like he was not gonna allow this anymore because my kids walk all over him. I'm actually the disciplinarian. But he was like determined to like, you know, be like super. And and after listening to the homework, I said, honey, you know, I think that's a great idea, but I invite you. Before I'll be like, are you crazy? Why are you gonna tell him that? He's gonna be super upset. Like, I'm super opinionated. Like, so I said, baby, I invite you to like model how you want him to act versus like, you know, like drilling him on what he should not do. And he looked at me like, who are you and where's my wife?
Success.
And then I go, hold on, listen to this part of this thing that I'm watching. And then I wrote it back and I go, look. And he was cracking up. Yeah,
It's what
it
ends
was
up happening. It's what happens. That's what exactly what I said. Like you all of a sudden are aware of how you usually respond. And because you learn all these new things, you're like, shit, if I say it this way, and then you shock the people that are around you exactly like it happened to you. They're like, you're like, le das cranque. But this time you're like inviting him to look at it differently and change his perspective. So yeah, that's amazing.
I'm like the more, even though I'm like very like to the point and I get over things and, you know, move on, and but I'm actually the more caring one. Like my husband can very easily like decantar somebody and like that's it. It doesn't matter who it is, a cousin, a brother, like it doesn't matter. Like you're done and you're dead. Like don't even talk to me anymore. Like, and I'm not like that. For me, it's like, are you crazy? Like my sisters are like my life. Like my family is like no matter what they do to me, like we have to figure it out. And for him, it's like no, like he's tajante. I'm like, so how are you so sensitive, so loving, so this, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's it, you're dead.
With
so yeah,
with the topics of this week, I'm sure that you can dig and find the answer to that question. There's a lot of like, you know, backstory that causes them to be that way, where they're indifferent or, you know, they don't feel safe with you, they're gonna cut you off, and then that's it. And you're different because you had a different family system or a different attachment. So very cool stuff. Really cool. Any other little successes that happened along the way? Habits, routine? How are you doing with that, Evelyn?
oh me,
Yeah.
well, I already was in the habit of in the morning, like, you know, doing my prayer. I have a very strict like morning routine. And if I wake up like 30 minutes late, I'm like rushing through it because I have to get like through all of it in order for me to feel like Betsy said, when you go to the church, like she feels like, and when I don't do that, I'm a mess. So I identified that a long time ago. But then when I go on vacation, which by the way is a very often, I sort of don't do the same habit, but I try to stick to it even while I was on vacation. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually trying to add a habit though of flossing before I go to sleep.
Do you need an alarm for that?
I actually have a nighttime routine, but it doesn't say floss, but yes, I forget to.
Let me ask you something. What happens if there's a day where it just doesn't happen in the morning?
I mean, I can tell the difference because I don't feel like at peace and I don't feel but I mean I'm okay with it. Like there are times that our plane got home at 2 in the morning and at 5 there was no way I was gonna get up, and then because I mean I wake up at 5. My body pretty much wakes up automatically now. But I wake up at 5 in the morning. So sometimes 5 is not doable. So sometimes I actually take like part of my day to do it, like because I really have to be ready and everything by like 8. But sometimes it'll be 8:30 or 8:45, and I have to, bite into my day to get those things done because they're crucial. And it includes the journaling and reading my.
Got it. But you can always do it later, right? If it doesn't happen in the morning, you can still have peace throughout the day and create an
Oh yes,
abundance
I
of
can
time
definitely.
and then do it later and know that you'll have a peaceful moment later on.
Later on has never happened. I'm
But
not
it
gonna
can.
lie. My day like literally goes like everything is planned to like the T, because if not, everything doesn't get done.
Sounds like you have a lot going on, a lot to do.
Always.
Your day is filled.
Like right before I got on, I had a meeting and I was like, hey, I gotta get off. It's at 12. And he's like, oh, but I was like, no, it's 12. I gotta go.
What happened? And Betsy's saying, and what happens if everything doesn't get done?
It'll get done tomorrow. I don't really stress like that.
No. Okay. Betsy?
I
You
don't really
type?
sweat
No?
the small stuff.
Okay. Success. There's a scripture coming up in my heart that I want to share with you. And it's
But I want to write it down.
well, you know it. For sure you know it. Be still and know that I am God. So you have a full day, and I invite you to bring that presence of God to your forefront as much as you can throughout the day. I in one of the yoga classes that I took, and yoga is not very Catholic, or so they say, but there's a lot of good nuggets of wisdom that come out of the teacher that I do the class with. And she talks about, and I think this weekend in the summit that we went to, somebody said it, like romanticizing your day and going slower. Like we have so much to do and we want to zip through it all that sometimes like things are happening, and at the end of the day, when you're going to examine your conscience, you can't even remember the details of your day. So if there's like a few moments throughout the day where you can stop, like romanticize the bite that you're taking of your food. And like as you're cooking, pay attention to you stirring the spoon, because you're like bringing yourself into the present moment. Or like when someone is talking to you, one of your kids are talking to you, that you stop and like relish that moment so that you're still, and so that when you lay down at night you can be like, oh my God, I remember the color of the tea that I was stirring, or I remember the conversation that my son was, I remember that little crease in his smile while he was talking. So that, like Betsy says now, it's like mindfulness in real time. And then it'll slow down your day, because I think sometimes when we have so much going on, like it almost limits our time, as opposed to when you slow down and do everything with mindfulness, it kind of like opens up that abundance of time, and things just happen. I don't know if that makes sense, but be still and know, because when I hear you talk, I sense like a very busy woman with lots to do and so much responsibility and all this stuff going on. that like she's gonna squeeze in that time, but that time is like, even that 30 minutes that you make is like rushed because I gotta do this and I gotta do this and I gotta do this and I gotta do this. Like what I envision for you and what I invite you is like in that moment, those 30 minutes, make them be the longest 30 minutes ever. Like I'm going to write slowly. Even if I write 2 sentences today, I'm going to write slowly so that I can remember this particular moment, because this is the moment that brings me peace. And if it can't happen in those 30 minutes, then I'm going to find 30 minutes where I'm going to give myself that. Be still.
I love it. So my husband tells me I have a very bad memory, like long-term memory. So he'll be like, "Oh, we
In the
went to this
past, you've had in the past, right? You've had bad.
class," and I would say, "Oh no, like I don't remember that." Or and he's like, "I know is that you don't live like the moment. You know, you're always like, what's next and what's next and what's next and what's." I'm like, well, I mean, I do live the moment. I'm there. I feel like I'm happy being there, but I know what he's saying. Like like
I
it's
very
not
much
like
understand that.
nothing else in my mind, only that.
Right, because
So
most of the time, like when we go on vacation, we always have this conversation on the way home. When we do the Christmas vacation, we'll talk on the way home about the vacation. And the first thing that we go to is like all the things that went wrong. And I'm like, but wait, let's talk about like all the good stuff. Like there's so many good parts of this, like the scene that like the scenery, or the fact that we went hiking, or how good one meal was. Like we tend to like be so busy that we just focus on all the things, and where your focus goes, your energy grows. So if you focus so much on like all the things that you need to get done, then there's just going to be more tacked on to the back of your list. But if you focus on like that 30 minutes of like peace and tranquility, then that's where your focus will go, and you'll always make time for it because it truly does bring you peace.
yeah, for sure.
So,
Thank you.
Debla, you wanted to go next, no?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna success stories. I'm finding it's like a scrambled egg, right? Like everything's coming at me at once. So I'm a very like organized, structured person, and if I studied this theory, I can then see. And I don't know if it's part of aging or it's just part of the massive amounts of information we're acquiring. And maybe some of the stuff was already in practice, so I'm I'm just like taking in the new. But like I'm very aware of like habit stacking, stuff I used to do and what I'm adding on, and how to maybe create new habits with time. I don't have to walk every day. Perhaps I walk 3 days a week this way, and then 2 days a week do something else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing the attachments and how I was raised and how that's projected out. Many things just coming at me at once, going aha. And I think the most important one is respond, not react, which I've been working on for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's happening. Like I'm in real time processing what I'm thinking to then be able to put it out in a way that is going to be better received, depending on who's listening and what I need to. So anyway, that's my success story, like, and in real time, and in not just so like with my husband, with my siblings, with my children. So lots of success stories. I'm fired up, which I think, net, my intention going into this was to find, joy despite the circumstances.
Mm.
And I thought of you so much last night, Betsy, as I'm cleaning up. It's Bingo Tuesday, but bingo didn't happen because mom's not feeling it, blah, blah, blah. But as I'm cleaning up, I felt joy. Like I was just like, it's happening. It's happening. The little seed is getting watered through all this awareness. And I'm feeling like how I get emotional. I'm feeling it. It's happening.
That's
I
beautiful.
wanted to share that.
That's beautiful. I totally resonate with that, and it's funny because the more I learn, the more like I'm on the 4th time or 5th time that I've been getting this information, and each time I've grown a little bit more. And I think it isn't until now that I'm like applying everything as much as possible. However, it is creating a lot more conflict in my life as far as like the people that I'm around, and most especially my husband. Like we've had some major discussions, which we would call arguments or fights, but it's like deep-rooted discussions that are not fun. They're not at all. Like at the end of the night, it's very heavy and very much like, but at the end of the day, when we go to have another discussion, I've noticed that the times have shortened because we're understanding each other. So the more you learn and the more you apply, the more conflict or maybe darkness you feel or heaviness you feel, but it produces like the fruit, and you're seeing that. So that's awesome. Definitely success. So we're gonna go for, is there anything else that anybody would like to share or say so we can get right into question and answer?
I would like to share that I love that I was able to do my homework even though that I was recovering from COVID.
Oh,
Yes, and I really enjoy. I love the attachment theory because that's when that's the one of the things that the Lord guide me when I find out about my husband betrayal, that he struggled with attachment, that he needs that. And then but I love the part, I'm trying to find it, that he says like the brain, I think it's in that one. Like the brain, I love the part that says like the brain will adjust, right? So it brings hope that doesn't matter how we being raised or how even we mess up our own children, it could be fixed, right? Like if there's opportunities to be transformed. So that brought me a lot of hope and joy.
and you've seen it too. You've experienced the brain adjusting and you've experienced the hope, which is
Yes.
beautiful. That's beautiful. All right, so let's hop into it. We have 2 sets of reflection questions that we could go through, or if anybody has questions on the material. Betsy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, real quick, just to emphasize what Marilyn was saying. What you're describing, Marilyn, is neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is, imagine, you know, like the brain has like a lot of like creases and like little like caminitos, like little roads almost. The idea of neuroplasticity is that the more you practice something, whether it be a skill, a habit, a thinking process, whatever it is that you consistently put attention to and you implement, that consistency changes the brain, which is why when you think of like sports and music, like if let's say you want to start learning how to play you want to learn how to play the piano, if you go over a lesson in your mind, not just like playing it, actually, you are developing that part of the brain that's in charge of playing the piano, and you're changing it to create a new structure that will support your success in playing the piano. That's why visualizations are so powerful, because whether you're physically playing the piano or you're mentally playing the piano, they're both contributing to the change in your mind. And this is true for everything, like losing weight. Like if you visualize yourself losing weight, if you imagine like burning calories as you sleep, or like if you're constantly working on something physically or mentally, your brain is changing physically to adapt to that new skill that you're developing. And by the same token, the moment you stop practicing that skill, the brain also goes back to the old ways. That's why being consistent, that's why we start with daily practices in this program, because if you are consistently doing something, that reinforces and supports you so that you can consistently do other things as well. Just yesterday, my son was doing a project for science or social studies, and he had to pick a philosopher, and he chose Aristotle's. And he was telling me about his quote that says, "We are what we repeatedly do." And essentially, like that idea, like we are what we repeatedly do, like is also supportive of the theory of neuroplasticity, which means that if we're doing something consistently, we become it. We change biochemically to become it. So yes, there are a lot of difficult things for people who have experienced trauma. They have to go a longer way than people who haven't. They have to work harder. They have to try more, and they can still get there. It's the same thing with like people who are underprivileged, right? Like they may not have the parents who can pay for college and school and this and that, but they can still have those outcomes. They just may need to push through a little harder. So yes, there is always hope. That is the foundational value, if you will, of what we believe here. And it is supported by medicine and by science.
I listened to one of the podcasts that I think I've listened to all the ones that you have sent. And then today in my walk, I was listening to that Jamie
Kern Lima.
And I think she was talking to the same guy. I might have read this, but basically she was saying that about I wrote it down, so I was looking for it, about how this guy is a coach for like athletes, and what he does is he gets them to feel like if they're having a problem, and then he gets them to feel, okay, when you hit home runs or when you were at your peak, what were you doing? How did you feel? Envision it, whatever. So I spoke to someone today and I was like, remember when you were at your peak and you used to play pickleball all the time, and and I was like, you have to do that again, because it just helps you in changing your neuroplasticity or whatever. I thought that was interesting.
That was Ed Milet.
That was Ed Milet. I love Ed Milet. Yeah. He says that when he coaches them, he has them go to that energy of empowerment, and I got this, and yes. So that from that state of consciousness, then they can solve problems. And that leads me to the quote by Einstein. He said, "You cannot solve a problem from the same level of thinking that created it." And what that means is like sometimes we want to like we're down in the dumps, we're frustrated at something that we're going through, and we're trying to find solutions. But the mindset, the energy with which you're thinking about it or trying to solve it is what created the problem in the first place. So the invitation is like, go to that place, go to that higher level of thinking, that higher level of consciousness, which he's doing through energy. And we go back to the triad of CBT, like thoughts, feelings, and actions. What he's doing is he's using the emotional part, like the feelings part. He's going there. He's empowering that, elevating that. And from that level of consciousness, from that energy of empowerment, from there, he is teaching them, his clients, how to think and how to act. So that's actually an example of how to start in the emotions, which was a question that came up in the last couple of weeks.
Awesome. Yep. Deb.
I asked this on the chat, and Betsy said to bring it to the class, and I think it's sort of linked to part of the last lesson, use of self and counter transferring and all of that. Like, how do you separate so I tend to be very empathetic, and you can tell by my, like, you guys are talking, my face will show my reactions, and I would probably have to get better at that as a coach, or maybe use it to somehow a benefit. I'm not sure, because it does translate genuine emotion and authenticity, but then it could also be judgment. I'm not sure, but I carry the weight of what I am exposed to. So I read an article last week that the athlete from Africa that was in the Olympics was set on fire by her significant other. I'm still carrying the emotional weight. I'm washing the dishes last night. For some reason, she pops into my brain and I like surrender it in prayer, but I can't just forget about it. And so as a coach, and you're hearing about sometimes these very heavy things. And maybe the answer is you choose your clients if you can't separate empathetically. But that was the question. How do you keep yourself, with a healthy barrier, I guess, to not to hear it, process it, leave it there, and not carry that weight.
So allow me to explain what empathy is first. Empathy is someone sharing what they're going through, let's say something really sad, and they're in a pit. So imagine there's like a hole, like a dark pit on the ground. They're in that pit emotionally. And when you're walking by, you see the pit and you're like, oh, like, you can feel their feelings and it hurts. And then you jump in to that pit to hold space and support that person. That's a problem. That's not empathy. That is, they say there's a difference between no, but that's not sympathy either. That's not smart connection. I don't know what to call it, but it's not smart because this person was in a pit. You jumped in to hold space, but then now there's two in a pit, right? So it's a problem. We're not really making a difference. Empathy is there's the pit, you feel the feels, you go in the pit, but you go in right after you put a ladder. So that when you go in to hold space for the person, you have the opportunity to climb back out, porque si no, son dos en el pit. Now you need help. Now you need someone to come help two instead of one, right? But you put the ladder, you go in, and then you have the opportunity and the option to come right out, and they have the opportunity and the option to use that same ladder to come back out. So that's a way of supporting and inspiring hope in someone that is in that pit. That is empathy. Empathy is going in, but knowing that you can come right back out. And you can decide how long you stay there to hold space and to be in the pit with them, right? Like that's up to you. So how do you let go of that? I first wanted to define what empathy is, and then now I have to share there's a triad of, there's a lot of triads in psychology. There's like a drama triad, a triangle that talks about the victim, the villain, and the hero. And what happens is that when we empathetic people assume the responsibility of helping, supporting, saving others, we assume we assume the role of a hero. And what happens is that where there's a hero, there's a victim. And where there's a hero and a victim, there's a villain. So if we treat or see the people who are going through adversity or in pain or in trauma, if we see them as victims, then that's going to exacerbate and trigger the hero in us. And we're going to want to rescue them, and we're going to want to support them and save them. And that is not necessarily in their best interest or our best interest. God knows that I have been through that so many times. I learned this theory not in school, but with my coach. So like many times I was like, but like I felt responsible for saving, rescuing, supporting. But really, the mindset behind that is they're victims. They're not good enough to figure it out. They don't have what it takes to. They're not empowered enough to. And there's a little bit of conflict with that, because my core belief is that we were created to God's image and likeness. My core belief is everything works for the good of those who love him. My core belief is like God's got us. So then if I'm acting in ways that suggest that this person ain't got it because because he wasn't created to God's image and likeness, because God doesn't have his back. Like, so when I realized that I was acting, or I was showing up in the world as a hero, and that made me create victims, then I was able to like surrender that and be in service and in support, while still giving the person I'm supporting and serving giving them like the authority, giving them or trusting in their capacity to rise up, with or without my help. Right? So that's a different mindset and a different conceptualization that helps you show up with more empowerment, both for you and for the other person. Just to complete the triangle, if there's a hero, then there's a victim, and you want to rescue them and you want to save them. What happens if you don't? And again, there are a lot of people in our families, in our lives, in our friendships, who are victimized, and they've assumed the role of the victim, and they exacerbate this like need and responsibility in us to rescue and save them and support them. And we don't have to engage with that. So what happens is that the victim, whenever you don't hold space, whenever you don't do what they want you to do, whenever you don't solve their problems, the victim then becomes the villain. I'm sorry, no, you become the villain, right? So if you're not the hero, you're the villain. And that's where like, you know how they say no good deed goes unpunished? Sometimes we're like doing all this good, but if we didn't do it to the person's standards, or if we didn't do one little thing, or there's so much entitlement, that when you switch things up and hold that person accountable because they're empowered and capable, then you're the villain. You're no longer the hero. You know, you suck. So that's a theory that I wanted to bring forth before I answer this question. So in the like with the example of the athlete, you get, that's a different one, right? Like that's not with villain and hero and victim. If you feel that, you get to ask the Lord, what is it that he wants you to do with that? Like, I can't, because God speaks to us through our emotions, I believe. I think the emotions are the compass he uses to guide us, right? Like if something like really moves your heart, then maybe you volunteer and those kinds of things. If something breaks your heart, you donate, you give yourself, you serve. So if that hurt deeply, maybe wonder, like, what are you moving me to do with this? Do you just want me to connect with this sadness? Do you just, I don't know. I wonder if in some way he could be giving you permission to grieve. Like you've been going through so much in your life and you've been so positive about it and you have continued to push through and move forward, but it's a lot. So maybe by you connecting with the story of this athlete, it gives you biochemically the opportunity to move some emotions that have been stored in your body so that you can express them in a way that feels aligns with your thoughts and beliefs, right? Because maybe you're like, no, I shouldn't be crying for this because I'm staying positive, and that gave you permission to release some of that. I think at some point I shared with you that we have like sensors or like thermometers that measure the amount of emotion that we can hold in our bodies. Like, so for example, like let's say I can hold up to 80 degrees of sadness in my body. And I can hold, this is a story, right? Like to help understand it. I can hold up to 70 degrees of anger in my body. Then what happens psychologically speaking is that whenever let's say if I surpass 80 degrees, and God knows I did with Fofi, if I surpass my 80 degrees of tolerance of sadness, then my body needs to release that because it cannot hold more than that. So then I unconsciously, I'm going to create opportunities in my surrounding, in my life, in this life that I am the producer and creator of. I am going to create opportunities to release some of that anger so that I can come back to my center. Or same with sadness. And then the same with anger. Like, there's been times that I've been going through like a lot of things, a lot of situations that exacerbate anger in me. And maybe I'm not as familiar with anger, so I don't express it as much. So then I surpassed my 70 degrees of tolerance, and I went to a store and there was a long line. So I went to the shorter line, and then the one person in front of me took 3 hours to pay. And then the last person in the long line was already done. And then I'm pissed off and I'm upset. And right, because, or someone is being rude por gusto, or, you know, there's a situation in the road and it triggers like road rage, right? So that's our way of unconsciously creating opportunities in our environment, attracting opportunities in our environment that are going to allow us to release some of that. So there's that. There's maybe a seed God is planting to invite you to reflect on, I don't know, maybe someone else lost someone recently, and because you felt so much for this athlete, you remember that person, and you jumped into a call and you let them know you're there, and that was the thing that they needed to push through. Like, God is so mysterious and so incredibly wise that he allows for the randomest experiences to come to us, or for them to be experienced by us, so that he can use us as vessels to support others. So if you feel something deeply, discern, reflect, meditate on it, and see where you're guided to it. Are you guided to release some of your own emotions? Are you guided to do an act of kindness for someone else who may need you at that moment? And because you had that awareness of that emotion, you could connect and empathize with that other person. Is it a way of dissociating from your own thing because now you're focused on the other one? And is it a way of sabotaging your joy or your happiness, right? Is it a way of real deep empathy? Are you being called to send a message, a letter to? I sent letters to Kobe Bryant's wife when Kobe Bryant died. I sent emails, DM messages, and I offered support because I was doing the Her to Hope program because I was moved to it. And, you know, whether it lands or not, doesn't matter as long as you act on it, if you're being guided to it. So there are a lot of possibilities to what you're sharing. My invitation is that you consider them and you discern, am I feeling this way because I feel responsible for saving this person? Does that mean that I don't trust this person has the capacity to push through? And does that mean I don't have that capacity to teach her how to fish instead of giving her the fish? Just maybe like sit with it and see what God is trying to tell you if it continues to show up for you consistently.
I'll follow it up by saying, so the drama all the things you said at the beginning, so on an intellectual level, I can intellectualize a lot of it, and family dynamics, I won't get into it now, but I've put a lot into practice of putting the ladder down and coming back up and etc. This particular example resonated with, like, it's been with me a long time. I've thought about it before bringing this up. It's not a situation, although perhaps what you said about finding a way to release emotion that I may be disassociating from, it may ring true, but it's man on man violence, human on human violence, that interiorly puts me in, I can't explain it. It's as if I were watching a child of mine destroy another child of mine. It's illogical. I get it. I don't know this person. She's an African. I didn't even know she existed until I read the article. But I feel deeply until I can surrender it, which I often just do prayerfully, and eventually it just dissipates. Other times talking about it has helped me. So like in Bible study, I was carrying the angst of someone not my inner circle, but one loop out. A person disappeared, and it looked like it was a violent, in Puerto Rico actually. And it was destroying me morning, noon, and night. And then one day, I was just keeping it very, because I don't like pity. I don't want people, oh, poor Debla, she's going. But in Bible study, I'm asked for prayer, please, not just for this person and their family, but I feel very distraught. And then having uttered the words, I think, or by the grace of God and everybody's prayer, it literally just disappeared. The angst disappeared. And so I wonder, in this coach-client relationship, when you take on someone and they, how are there tools to like unload what might become emotional angst for me to be able to help them? Or is it just being really selective? But you never know, I think, what could come up, no?
Hey, coaching is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. So the reason I started with the triad of the villain, the hero, and the victim is because that is oftentimes very present in the coaching relationship. So my invitation would be to consider you have an empowered person capable of so much more than they're experiencing at the moment. And while they're vulnerable and they're going through it, they have what it takes. They have what it takes. Our job is to bring it out of them. So when you have the belief, or sometimes you have to build it. You don't believe in someone, but you can build that belief. When you build a belief in someone and someone's ability to rise up, you convey that and you show up in a different way. So when it comes to your client and coaching relationships, my invitation is that you definitely build that belief within you. Another thing I wanted to share, se me fue, espérate. I'm drawing a blank. Projection. So, and oneness. Okay. So whenever something really like moves you or bothers you, or you can't stand or can't deal with that, I love the possibility of examining projection as a defense mechanism. Like what about them could be true for me? In which ways could I be like looking at a mirror? Because many times the things that we see that are so horrible in other people are present within us. They're just a lot more politically correct and like smoothed out, right? Like if we see someone be super selfish, maybe our way of showing selfishness is thinking that the other person should be like, like we want them to be, right? Like, oh, my husband's so selfish. But then you're like, but why aren't you like this or that? Like, why are you thinking that way? Then you're being selfish and you want him to be the way you want him to be, right? Like, it's just that it's appropriate the way we usually express the thing that we're judging on the other person. And the first thing I thought when you said, about this ex was, yeah, she hurt him. Human hurts human. But how hurt must that human have been to hurt the other human? And there's this quote that says, hurt people, right? Like hurt people as an adjective, people who are hurt as a verb, other people. So when I see that, and I remember oneness, which is a concept that we're going to study here soon. When we think of oneness and we see other, two children of God go against each other, we get to see ourselves in them and know that we're one with them, they're one with each other. And there is a collective pain. If someone is doing such a thing, that person has to be in deep pain. There's no other way that someone in their, someone who is in, I don't know, who's in the rational mind, like you must be in a lot of pain. So when we find ourselves judging, and maybe judgment is the thing that you get to purify, judging the person who burnt the other one in fire, we could we could go more in depth and go from like judging and qué barbaridad, which I think is a natural response of each and every human being, to maybe even referring to it like, wow, how far have we come along? Right? Because then we include ourselves in that oneness that we're with. Because if we don't take ownership of the world, the universe, the human beings that surround us and everything that's happening, then we have no power. We're victims. But if we include ourselves as like, wow, to what point do we have to be so hurt that we're capable of doing such a thing? To what point are we, hurting humanity? Just so oneness is a more spiritual concept that I would invite us to consider when we're turned off or triggered by things that happen in the world. Because we were in the Summit of Greatness this weekend, which is just a beautiful 2-day conference that's so inspiring. And I was talking to Cynthia and Nati, and they were talking about like feeding the homeless and, how they were bringing the kids and trying to make a difference and show the kids. And that they brought them sandwiches, and the one homeless goes like, just one ham, like really? And they were like, oh my gosh, qué mal agradecido. And I was like, okay, as soon as I got to this, I don't know, 4 or 5-star hotel, it was a Marriott, it was super trendy. My first thought was like, qué mierda estos cuartos. They were super small. It was a Moxie. And Moxies are like super trendy and beautiful, but the rooms are like tiny. Like it was
The shower is in the room. So
yeah,
you're
like
basically close the door, but it's like translucent. So whoever's in the room with you is gonna see you shower.
other things. So I was complaining about the room, and we spent, I want to say it was like $300 a night, so it wasn't super cheap. So I'm like complaining about the room and thinking like, oh my gosh, next time I'm never gonna stay in a Moxie, whatever. That is the equivalent of, mind you, my husband's taking up the care of the kids in Miami while I'm in LA in a nice hotel, going to my unicorn land to, experience a 2-day summit that was going to leave me like, keep me in La La Land for a few days. Everything's taking, I'm complaining about the freaking room. That's worse than only one ham in my sandwich, right? Like a lot worse. So many times we see in someone else how this person killed or burned this human. How dare they? And how many times do we not burn our children, our spouses, our loved ones, our parents, or with our words, with our actions, with all of it? So if you're moved by that, ask God what you can do to purify your soul with that. Like, if there's an action he wants you to take because he's using you as a vessel, is there an emotions he's wanting you to liberate, like, or free yourself from? Is there a reflection in the mirror that he's pointing towards so that you can elevate and purify and become better? That's where the discernment comes in. That's where you can use your one-on-one coaching now to to process. But that was a really good question that I think all of us are going to go through. And I guess the simple answer, I'm sorry.
She's talking so much. She's gonna get pop from the doctor.
The simple answer to that question is there are ways of you learning how to discern if you engage with an emotion that is exacerbated by the person you're helping or not, or how long for. But I think if God gave you the gift of empathy, it's going to be inevitable that there will be times where you will be like, oh, mi corazón. And that's okay. That's okay. Then, hold space for that person. Maybe by you feeling that, I sometimes like see it this way. By you feeling that and with your expressions, because you say that you wear your emotions on your sleeves, with your expressions, you are conveying to the person that you're feeling and holding space with and for them. That's healing. That's healing, Debla. Did I want my dear friend Caro to suffer my loss? Of course not. Was it healing for me that she did? So maybe you holding some of that emotion is like, the way I see it is like physically taking some of it off the other person's shoulders, so that it's almost like, you know, Jesus fell a bunch of times on his way to the cross. I mean, to the Calvary, to the crucifixion, and people came and helped. So feeling another person's feeling is the equivalent of helping them carry their cross, knowing that it's their cross. That's the ladder. It's their cross, but I got your back. I'm gonna help you for este tramo. So do you want to dissociate completely from feeling other feels because you want to protect yourself? Then you're not using the gift God gave you, right? So hold space, be fully present, feel into it when you're with that person, and then make the choice to climb out the ladder when you feel like, oh, I want to be present with my family. It's time for me to center myself and stop carrying that. And then, you discern, you go back and forth within the process. Makes sense?
Totally. I think I drew a picture because I thought it was I don't know that I've ever heard you say it like that, but I drew the picture of the pit, and then I drew a picture of like no ladder, and then here it's the pit, and then the ladder bringing somebody out, and it makes so much sense. So much. See, like 5 cohorts, and now I can see the difference. That's awesome. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, that was a great question.
I have another question, and it's about the material. Identified patient. It was lost on me, and maybe because I'm like, it's like they are the patient. What do you mean? They're the reason we're here. He gets angry all the time. What are you talking about?
Oh,
I'm like, I gotta bring this to Betsy.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because the idea of family systems is that there's not one person who's a problem. That's the one person who's carrying the symptom of the family or the system. In this case, we're talking family, but this applies to an employer, a business. Let's say there's un empleado que, oye, eso es de carajo. It's not that that person is the bad one. It's that that person is carrying the symptom of something that's not working in the business. Maybe it's that they chose the wrong person who wasn't aligned in values or whatever, right? But it's not about the one person, because again, we go back to that oneness. I love systems theory. I love family, family couples, love it, because it reminds us of that oneness. So the family is one, and the little black sheep isn't the problem. The problem is that the little black sheep is carrying the symptom of the entire family. But if one person changes, then the little black sheep will stop being black. Ay, qué racista. You know what I mean?
It wasn't taken that way. It's the black sheep. It's fine.
Why would they call it black sheep? Why not orange sheep or white sheep? Anyway, the point is that you get to see the problem in the system, in the structure, as opposed to
an aha moment.
Huh?
I just had an aha moment. I get it. So the identified patient, and I'll use myself as an example. So I'm sharing on a personal level. The identified patient is a person in the family dynamic that's angry. Always angry, explosive. But the family dynamic is contributing to that. And how is it contributing? Maybe people are not being respectful or mindful or attentive.
Or appreciative.
But we're all appreciated. But we're all looking at that person going, why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Without realizing that the black sheep is not. I got it.
I have to do with that. How did I contribute to that?
I got it.
If you see it that way, you give the black sheep permission to not be the black sheep anymore. But many times in a system, because we believe in the victim and villain and hero and all these things, you know, in a story, there's all of those. Then in our families, there are all of those too. And there's the person who's always creating the problems. And they have been assigned that role by our actions. Since we're little, we're saying like, este es Candela, right? Like we already decided que ese es Candela. Esta es una loca. Ese, mira, ese va a pasar con raspa cum laude, they would say in Puerto Rico. So, you know, like magna cum laude. Is that how do you say it in English? Magna cum laude?
Mm-hmm.
So in Spanish, in Puerto Rico, they would say raspa cum laude, because like pasó raspado, like apenas, you know, like he barely made it. So we have assigned those roles and labels to people from they were since they were little, or since we have assumed them since we were little. So we continue to step into that identity over and over and over again, because it's what they've assigned to us and it's what we've assumed. So it takes two, right? And many times it's just easy. It's in your face. Like, oh my gosh, this person has anger management problems. You need to get over it. But wait, how did I contribute to that? What do I have to do with that? And I promise you, I am a living testament of all these theories that I share with you. I promise you that in the measure that one person changes, the rest of the system changes. When I was a teenager, I had a lot of problems with my dad. He and I wouldn't get along because he was super strict, and I was a really good girl. Like I never drank. I wanted to stay virgin to marriage, so I never had sex. I didn't smoke. I never tried drugs, still haven't. Like I was a really good girl, and I couldn't deal with him being so strict. So we clashed a lot. And I remember like me being like a perfect girl and my brother getting all the benefits of me being the perfect girl, and he was not perfect. He was Candela. So he was the black sheep, right? So then I was like, what the heck? I'm doing all the things right, but he's getting everything in a silver platter. Da, 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 da. And I remember at some point I became a little rebellious, and I was like, screw that. And I wasn't very respectful to my parents at some point. And I remember the one time I was going to therapy with a psychoanalyst. I was in grad school, so I was old enough already. And I remember having a conversation with my dad for 3 hours. And in that conversation, it was like all the family systems theory that I had learned about, like clicked and made sense. He didn't give me all the benefits and rewards and all the things that he gave my brother because I didn't need them. So he thought, since she's perfect, she doesn't need us. So he didn't give us attention. But then I would complain that he wouldn't give me attention, but he doesn't give me attention because he thinks I'm good, because that's why I'm portraying. I never communicated, I need a little love and appreciations, and I need you to see me. So he was responding, and we go back to the structure of that system where like it all integrates. He was responding to the way I showed up, to my identity. I learned in that conversation that the moment my relationship with my dad changed, the relationship of my dad with my mom changed, the relationship of my dad with my brother changed, my relationship with my brothers changed, my relationship, everybody changed. And so I always see, I think I said it in the master class, I always see relationships as a puzzle. My English is usually not very good looking, now even better, even less. So when you like, if this is how you fit in a puzzle, and suddenly you're changing your way of being because you understand that you have something to do with the rest of your system, then there's going to be clash and crisis. And crisis by definition is danger or opportunity. So danger, because if you don't stay consistent with this new change, you're going to go back to the old ways, and it's going to be even harder to change it in the future. Dangerous because that could break a relationship. Maybe it's not strong enough to resist it. We're talking about relationships that don't have a solid foundation. But I like to believe in crisis as an opportunity to create new ways of interacting, new ways of relating. So if now you're here because we have a need for balance and need for peace and for homeostasis, we are forced to, like, one of you is going to give in because you can't stand crisis forever. It's not sustainable. So what happens when you get here is that the other person is like, oh, wow, after challenging you for a bit, after fighting your new way, even if it's a better way, after doubting it, oh, okay, what is this person trying to do? What do they want? How are they manipulating, right? Like first, we may be questioned in our changes, but eventually it'll force them to realize like, oh, this is here to stay. I guess this is who she is now. Then at that point, the other person starts opening little by little until you fit in again, because we do have a need for fitting in. And we do, even if our unhealthy relationships, we function dysfunctionally, but we're always fitting in functioning. So the idea is, how do we be intentional about functioning functionally, and and creating those relationships and interactions? So what
Can
do
I ask you a question, Betsy? I'm sorry. Are you that you were done? So in that relationship that you're talking about with your father, what do you think would have worked better for you growing up? Like what could he have done to make you not be the rebellious, or not have a bad interaction with him? Obviously when you guys were four kids, you say you have your sister had severe mental retardation, so she needed, I'm sure, a ton of help and a ton of this one. And the brother that is probably not as good, he needed like is there anything that he could have done for you not to have gone down that road, let's say?
That's such a great question, because it connects us to the other masterclass this week. All he needed to do was see me. And we go back to attachment. In attachment, there's a lot of complexity and avoidant and resistant and anxious attachment and insecure attachment and all the attachments in the world. And ultimately, it boils down to this. If you want to create a secure attachment, see the person. And we talked about the 4 S's in the presentation. Let me look them up here. What
does that look like in daily? That's because like you're seeing the one that needs your help. You're seeing the one that needs, if your help physically, your help emotionally, your help, but the other one doesn't really, like how does that look like when you're seeing them? Like what does that look like and how does that person also perceive what? Because sometimes you can be seeing them, but then like you're seeing one way and I'm seeing another way. Does that make sense?
Can I attempt to say that you would like
show Betsy to be talking so much.
Yeah. No, I don't know the answer. I'm thinking that you show up differently for each one of them because you see them each differently. Does that make sense, Betsy?
It's a good question, Evelyn, because you definitely don't make a person feel seen the same way across the board. So yes, so what does that look like? Figuring what this looks like for them. How do you create a safe space? And we talked about safe space a couple of weeks ago, where we're talking about your daughters. And like, what does it mean to feel safe? Bueno, that you don't have an opinion every time that they tell you something, that you listen to them before reacting or responding or trying to solve the problem, that you acknowledge and validate their feelings and say like, oh, yeah, that sucks. Instead of saying like, listen, that's what kids your age do. It's una bobería, stop with the drama, right? Like, so that's safe. Seeing someone means that you paid attention. So you were speaking about how you're so busy, and that is a big, big, big threat to the opportunity to see someone. And it happens. Oh my goodness, it's horrible for me to acknowledge this because it's something that I've been working on for so long, but I am a culprit of that. I struggle with sometimes seeing someone or my children or someone that's, I don't know, in the streets because I'm so busy. I struggle with seeing a freaking rainbow, which is so meaningful to me because I don't look up because I'm always looking down at my phone or at the thing that I need to do next. So being present in the day-to-day and working towards being present allows you to see someone. And I'll give you an example. It was my grandma's funeral, and I broke up with my boyfriend because my grandma died. When my grandma died, it was a very unhealthy relationship at the time. And he reacted in a very selfish way. And it was my grandma. So it was like, okay, no, I'm not going to allow you to do that. So I broke up with him and I lost my grandma, who was the love of my life. So I had two losses at the same time. And we were doing the rosaries, the novena, in the days after her funeral. And everybody's there, grieving my grandma, but I'm grieving my grandma and my boyfriend. And I remember being super sad, but it's not about me. It's about my grandma. So I'm not taking up space. But I guess my aunt saw me. She saw that I was like in pain. And all she did was come to my ear. Like she gave me a hug, at some point, maybe when I was saying goodbye or whatever, after the rosary, she came and gave me a hug and she's like, how's your heart? Mm-hmm. And like that stayed, like I felt so seen. I'm like, oh my goodness, we're all grieving here. But she saw me. She saw the pain in my heart. And that was, imagínate, my grandma passed away in 1998. I don't know, do the math. I can't think right now. So almost 30 years ago. And I, to this day, adore that aunt and you're going to hear her mentioned because she's my angel. She's my spiritual director. To this day, I'm deeply connected to her because she saw me at a time that I needed to be seen. So what does that look like for you? That because you're paying attention in the day-to-day as opposed to checking off your to-do list, which I'm not saying it because of you. This is something that I have struggled with deeply. Because I'm being more present, now I can see that my daughter made like a little face that was different to the usual faces, or I can see that someone in the street is going through something and I can offer help, or like when you pay attention, you'll inevitably see, because God will reveal it to you. You just have to be open to seeing. So seeing has to do with noticing a reaction, noticing an energy, noticing a response. Maybe your kid te salió con una mala crianza, like, they were rude and you're like, whoa, this person's sensitive today. Like, and instead of jumping to judgment, we get curious. Go ahead.
I wanted to mention, so I have 3 children. And of course, we parent each one different. We react to each one. They are different. And since they were little, they've known that if and when they would say, well, but you don't do that to so-and-so, I'd be like, but you're you. And so-and-so is so-and-so. And if they don't, whatever, whether it's, make me angry or make me happy, regardless, you're going to get your individualized, whatever. But having said all of that, one of the 3 is very quiet, very introverted. She flies below the radar. She's a stellar student. She's a rock star. She doesn't get any of the rock star, because she doesn't demand it. And very recently, I became very aware of this whole thing. I just had an awareness of like going up to her and seeing her and going, Mimi, you really do a great job of, making your good grades look super easy. I don't see you with a book in your face all the time. You never miss a special occasion because you have to study. I mean, I missed a million things. I can't go mom to the reunion because I have to study. My daughter will always do everything that she's expected to and rock the grades and make it look easy. And I felt that acknowledging her and saying to her, Mimi, I see you. You're doing an amazing job at making this look easy. I know it's not. So I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate that. I appreciate your work and effort to be. And in my house, my kids' jobs are to be students and good members of our family community. She does both really well. But telling her that, I saw it. I could feel the energy change in her. Whereas she usually lives in her sister's shadow. They're 18 months apart. And it's not uncommon for one to, like, let the other one shine, and I'm good over here. She's the unsung hero. And since then, and it's not that I'm blowing smoke up her butt or, praising her unduly, but it's seeing her in a moment where it mattered. So I thought I'd share that.
Thank you. That is very important. So and then the last two in attachment theory are the being soothed and secure. So when soothing means, like what happened with your daughter recently, Evelyn, that she reached out and she called you, and like you being there, like meant that you saw her, that you created a safe space for her, and that you soothed her, because she was stressed out, she was anxious, she was like going through it, and your engagement with her soothed her, and then that makes a secure attachment, right? Like, and that would have changed the relationship with my dad. My mom was doing what my dad failed to do, and that's what saved me, I feel, right? Because my mom was everything I needed her to be. My mom listened, like she asked me about, she would ask me questions about what's going on with me and the boyfriend and the this and the school and la cosa. She was present. She was more, because she trusted me and she knew the decisions that I made, she was more lenient. And because she was more lenient and trusted me, I didn't want to lose her trust. So I always continued to do the right thing. And like, it's interesting because as I mother my 15-year-old now, I go back, how did my mom do it? How did my mom do it? And I try to do it like her, because I remember thinking, like, whatever I do, number one, I'm not going to lie to my mom. So I'm not going to do anything that I can't tell her. And number two, I'm not going to fail her, because she trusts me. She trusts me. So I think, like, so what I was missing from my dad was that, to me, it was more about him seeing me, because if he really saw me, as opposed to worry about the problems in society and the things that people my age at the time would do, if he would have seen me, he would have known he had nothing to worry about. But instead, he was raising me the way he was raising my brother. He saw my brother. But he didn't see me. So then you feel like, coño, I'm doing everything. Like, I remember thinking, like, I wanted to get pregnant so then he could really distrust. And I wanted to do all the things that he was worried about. I wanted to do him pa fastidiarlo. But then I had my mom and my consciousness. But so fortunately for me, and we go back again to attachment theories, when you're older, you have attachments to different people, not just a primary caregiver. And because of those attachments, and we know this from having mentors and friends and people we admire in our lives, because we have attachments with other people, we get to receive that from others that may not be our primary caregivers. And that experience, to going back to Marilin's perspective of it's not too late and it's possible, even if you've experienced trauma in your childhood, then you have the opportunity to securely attach to a person who's a good role model, who sees you, who creates a safe space, who's soothing, and who allows you to feel secure in the relationship. Makes sense. Okay, so does anybody need any support so that I can coach you using systems theory? You want to be my client, Ceci? You're on mute.
Okay.
Okay, so if you could please turn off your cameras and hold space and maybe take notes so that you can give us feedback and ask any questions you may have. Okay, so cameras off.
Okay. Do I just talk?
Espérate, sí. Debla, if you don't mind, turn the camera off. Yes, I'm all yours. How are you, Ceci?
Good. Okay. When I was listening to this chapter, like I said before, I was like, oh my God, I'm such a mess up. And I know, I'm sorry. I know I'm a good mom, but you read that and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many different things, and I've seen the dynamics in my family of everybody. But that's not actually what I want to talk about right now, because we have a really difficult situation in my family, and it's a my sister-in-law, I'll just say it. This she's not a from here, so she has a different cultural background. And we're a very tight family. And we have just been like from I don't know how many years, she has slowly stopped um, coming to things even. And she's seeing somebody, I know that, meaning like someone to help her, a therapist. And we're like, therapist is horrible. um, and when I say they, I mean like my mom and my sister and me. And I'm I want to try. I adore my brother. My brother is amazing. He is such an incredible person. And I'd like to try and see how we can make this relationship, fix it, make it better. And so when I'm seeing the four S's, and I mean, there's so many stories, I really don't want to get into them. Um, but like my mom is like the Virgin Mary. She is a saint. She is the most beautiful human. If I could be an ounce of what she is, I mean, I've succeeded. She's amazing. And this person has put her down, I mean, in ways that you're like, whoa. It's been very hurtful. And like my mom will say, you know, I want your brother to stay married to her. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So anyways, I just need to see like how we can fix the relationships and get her to come back like to family things even.
So what would you say is the problem in that relationship that you want to fix?
Well, she apparently thinks, I don't even know what. She says that we need to apologize to her. And I'm like, for what? Like, I don't even, you know, and I guess what I'm seeing is maybe she didn't feel seen. Um, but I'm talking about like, must have been years ago. And I'm the type of person that I don't hold grudges. Sometimes like it's happened to me, even recently, it'll happen to me. I'll see someone and be like, hey, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to like that person. Or, you know, or like the person hasn't been nice to me. But I forget I'm just not, you know, so I'm not like that. Like I just like there's so many other I don't like to hold grudges. I don't know. I just don't. So I am like that. I'm not holding a grudge thinking about things that happened years ago that I don't even know what she's talking about. And honestly, I don't even know if it's with me or with my sister. But we had a family thing this weekend, and she was like, I'm not going. Another thing, I mean, she didn't come to a wedding. She didn't, it's just sad. And I feel for my brother.
Does your brother go?
Yes, alone. Sometimes he'll take his kids if they're here, but two are in college, so.
So what is it about her? What is it about her that is misaligned with your family? Like what do you think? Tell me about her. Tell me about her.
Well, I think part of it is the cultural part. For example, she would be like, "Oh, you guys are so loud," like you know. And
What else
maybe
does she like about you? What else?
like I remember once being like, oh, what was it? I said something like, oh, but I'm the third, and thank God mom and dad had me. Like I kind of think as a joke, and she was like, pop the like I had a big head, like I thought and I was kind of like, what? Like it's supposed to be like a joke. Like she doesn't get that kind of humor type thing. I don't know. So I have no idea. Like she's a very nice person, and people who meet her, she's very nice, but it's almost like if she resents us. Or she thinks like, for example, she's come to family things, and maybe she thinks she comes to family things and we're all dressed like in a little dress and she's like in shorts, and she's always like, of course, everyone's dressy.
She resents you. What does she resent you for?
Sometimes I think is that maybe how many times I call my brother.
What could that mean to her?
Eh, that I rely on him too much. I don't know. I mean, he's a doctor, so we call him all the time.
Okay. What else could that mean to her?
Right. She had a difficult childhood. She lost her father at a young age. She is from South Africa, like I said, so she left her family. She's here alone.
Marry him or before?
I'm sorry?
She left her family to marry your brother?
No. She left her family, came here, they met, and then they got married. And in the beginning, it was fine. I don't know if it's I'm trying to think of like when things, they had kids. Maybe we were too. I mean, I know she would get mad at my mom when my mom would say things, advice for the kids. Uh-huh. Um, and maybe sometimes it feels like if like we're always like my mom is always right, which she's not always, but maybe she got that feeling. I just need to know, like my brother's like, you need to apologize to her. I'm like, for what? I'm like, I'll apologize to her. I'll do whatever you want me to do.
What does your brother do?
He says, you have to mean it. And I'm like, I'm trying, okay. We haven't talked about this in a while because I've had so many other things going on that, to be honest, I'm like, let me get through my stuff and then I'll come back. So I have to ask him again.
But do you know what you need to apologize for? Has he ever told?
No.
Okay. So she has felt hurt. And we know that that's probably her orange juice. And because we're all one, and because we're living community, and because we're all brothers and sisters in God's, under God, it's her orange juice, and you also have something to do with that. We assume responsibility. So what do you feel you have contributed to her feeling hurt, her feeling unliked, not liked or unappreciated, her feeling less than, her feeling acomplejada?
Maybe because I kind of gave up on it and I just don't pay attention to her anymore.
Okay, so so you're indifferent to her, and indifference is, they say, the opposite of love, not hatred, right? Because if you couldn't stand her, there's still an emotion that we can just convert into, right? But when you're like, whatever, she doesn't matter, there's an energy connected to that,
Right.
that transmitted. What do you think about her? Truthfully, right? Like, honestly, there's no judgment here. So what do you think about her?
I think she's a I don't want to say it, but look,
Say this, it's okay. You're safe.
yeah, just I guess from time, like in the beginning, I liked her, but with time, I'm just kind of like, wow, she's really not that nice.
What were you really thinking?
I don't want to say it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So she's not that nice. What else do you think about her? How is she? Describe her. Without filters, in the measure that you feel comfortable.
Like I mean, she's a beautiful person. Meaning she's beautiful. She loves my brother. She is loves the kids. She's a kind human being, but for whatever it is with us, meaning like my family, and I mean my brother's family, she just really doesn't like us.
But it wasn't like that at the beginning.
No.
So what happened? If she's kind with everybody else,
Yeah.
if she's a nice person to other people, if she was nice and kind to you guys at the beginning, what do you have to do with this?
I don't know. When I saw the thing, the 4 S's, I was like, seeing, maybe we didn't like see her and sit and like I said, different cultures. Maybe, when you go to a family, you're like, and everybody's doing something else. And it wasn't like, let me sit. And like, she used to love my aunt who passed away. My aunt would sit next to her and talk to her and listen to her and hear her. And so when I saw that, I'm like, oh man, I have to do that. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so let me invite you to consider a few things. I'll share a personal story that maybe will help you reflect more deeply. I lived in Puerto Rico my entire life, born, raised, studied, todo. And I loved Puerto Rico. Really close to my family, very, very closely to my family. And I chose to move to Miami with my husband when we got married. And I was totally fine with that. I never thought I was going to stay in Puerto Rico forever. So I was fine with that. Pero no es lo mismo llamar al diablo que verlo venir, right? Like, one thing is to know and want something, and the other thing is to experience it. And when I got married, it was like perfect. Rainbows and butterflies, it was perfect. When I had kids, I realized my family, my culture, I'm outnumbered by Cubans, was fortunately Cuba, Puerto Rico, right? De un pájaro las dos alas. So it works out for me because it's so similar. But if they weren't similar, like it's like, my family and my culture and they're not going to be part of the day-to-day of my children. And that's part of my legacy to my children. That's the collective, right? Like the ancestry. And I remember having that breakthrough moment where I was like, I was just crying and crying and crying and crying because my entire life I dreamt about my kids being super close to my family. And my husband's family is amazing. So on top of the fact that they're the ones that are the closest, they are grandparents of the year, tios of the year. God bless them. They were born to do this. The best, the best, the best of the best. And not only are mine far away, but they're also not as like my mom is not as lovey-dovey as my mother-in-law. My dad is a super granddad. My mom loves through service. So she'll cook, she'll give the money, she'll do all the things. So it was painful. And I resented them right? Because jealousy is an emotion, and because we have all these emotions that we have labeled as bad because the church and religion says so, but they're emotions, and emotions are neutral. And I was jealous, so I, in some unconscious ways, I resented my in-law family because they had what I wanted mine to have. And my husband had what I longed for and dreamt of having. And it wasn't, I had to do the work. Unfortunately for me, this is what I do for a living. So it's accessible to me, but it's not accessible to the majority of the universe. So if I believed my thoughts and my feelings, as opposed to just observing and discerning and reflecting on them, I would be in your sister-in-law's shoes, probably, right? Resenting you because you have what I want, and resenting you because whatever. So there's that one side that I would love for you to consider, because, and this is something that I've learned from the Cuban culture, starting with my husband. Puerto Ricans are all about soar. If that means you need to live in California, Alaska, Europe, whatever, and I only see you a couple times a year, it's okay. Go soar, be your best self, do the thing. Cubans, my understanding, or at least my husband and our extended family and friends, are like, be be un basurero aquí instead of the guy who discovers the cure to cancer in California, right? Like, just stay here with me, don't go anywhere. Like, so it's also a different mindset. And then, when you gave that up, and then, your family, like the other family has it all, and that's not even enough, right? Because this doesn't bother me. In fact, I value it deeply, but I can see how if I'm in a different culture, it would have. On top of the fact that you get everything, now we have to have weekly get-togethers with the family. And it was a joke in my husband's family that they celebrate everything. There's a party for everything. If my father-in-law is a little bold, and if he uses a shampoo that gets him one hair out, we have to have a dinner and celebrate because he got one hair out from the shampoo. So, on top of me, and this is me putting myself in her shoes, on top of me giving everything up to the other family, they still want more, and it's still not enough, and yada yada, right? So there's that perspective. Then there's the difference in cultures, which leads to boundaries, most likely. The Cubans, Hispanics, I think in general.
Wait, Betsy, I have to let me get my computer plug. Hold on.
I have to go, but it's so good. See you next week. Bye bye.
Que te mejore.
Gracias. Y tú también.
Okay, I'm good.
So the other perspective that I wanted you to consider is that Hispanics, I think in general, and especially close-knit Hispanics as your family, experience boundaries in a very different way than many other countries in the universe. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, family systems calls it enmeshment. We tend to be enmeshed, and enmeshed means that we're so like close-knit and so tight that you don't know where one person ends and the other begins. And that makes it hard for clear boundaries, especially if you come from a different culture. I shared in a couple of weeks ago that I struggled with the boundary situation with my in-law family. And that's that I am like them. I am one of them, right? So if it was hard for me that I'm like building a home and a new family, and this is how I want to do things with my children, and this is, my mother-in-law had 4 children. Obviously, she knew more about kids than I did. My mom had 4 children. She knew more about kids than I did. But I knew things that they didn't know because I had access to resources that they didn't have access to. And I have a mindset and a personality and beliefs that they didn't necessarily connect with. And when I was raising my kids, it was hard for everybody to have an opinion. And to have an opinion feeling like entitled for me to follow it, right? So, and as a new mom, you're vulnerable. You don't know what the heck you're doing, but you were wanting to, and you think you intuitively in some way do know, and you're alone, and it's like it's hard. It's a hard time when you're figuring out motherhood. And do I add that we're hormonal if we're breastfeeding and all the things? So all that may have contributed to like the formation of a trauma. There was trauma in this lady's life through the way she experienced you and your involvement in her life and the family that she was creating with your brother. So if you are maybe in her words, right? Like, or from her perspective, if you're meddling into her life, you're disempowering her, you're robbing her of her right to build this family with her husband. She's feeling attacked or diminished, or right, like there are all these things that she could be feeling because number one, she doesn't think the way we do as Hispanics, and number two, she's alone. She doesn't have someone of hers. May I also share that by the time Fofi no. So by the time Fofi passed, I was over no. I wasn't in a bad place with my mother-in-law at all. I thought I was over it completely, but I wasn't. Like there was like a second wave. The first wave was when my first daughter was born, and it's because of all these things that we're talking about. And then the second wave was when they moved into the neighborhood. Both had to do with boundaries. So when my daughter passed, we were in a really good place. We had already like done a lot of work. And I remember being in the hospital with my daughter's body and everybody coming in to say like, the last goodbye. And me just thinking that I wanted someone from my family. And I remember feeling guilty about it because the Guerras are my family. Like I love them like mine. My mother-in-law was my mom. She's the one doing all my sopitas these days. She's just un ángel. And I remember feeling guilty, but all I wanted was my blood. It was a thing for me. And I didn't have it. And because I was in a different place psychologically and emotionally and spiritually, I didn't resent them for being there and not having mine, which I would have had I not been highly emotionally intelligent. But I longed for that. So I'm sharing all these things because I consider myself to be a force for unity. Like it's family unity is such a core value of mine that I will never allow for something like what you're going through to happen at my cost, at my expense. Never. It's just too big of a family value for me. I mean, of a core value. So this is coming from someone who will never allow herself to stay in a bad place with anybody who's related to my husband or even in my extended family. I won't allow it. I'll do anything in my power. And yet I felt those feels. So how much more may have she felt those things? And she hasn't been seen and she hasn't been sued. She's only been judged because don't you have a chip on your shoulder and like, don't be so manipulative or controlling, or why are you trying to divide the family or da 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 da, right? Like it's what we do. We jump to judgment instead of curiosity. So the invitation is, how do you see her and how do you reflect on what boundaries have you transgredido? No, I don't know how to say that in English. Transgredido. And what parts of her have you diminished or belittled unconsciously, right? Like clearly when you're wearing trajecito and she's wearing shorts, she feels diminished. She feels self-conscious. Was there an opportunity to share with her, like in the family chat or whatever, like, oh, we're all going to wear trajecitos? Or was there an opportunity to like include her so that she could blend in more seamlessly? Was there an opportunity to lower your voices and not interrupt so much? That's hard. So if it can't be done because it is what it is, was there an opportunity to acknowledge her? Right? Like, I acknowledge all the time that I talk too much. And my husband is so happy that I can barely talk. And because I've spoken so much today, he's going to be so happy tonight because I get to rest. So I'll say things like that. And so, like make fun of myself and make a joke out of it to acknowledge and validate what my husband thinks about me, that I talk so much. If you do the same, like, oh my goodness, poor, let's say her name is Maria. Hi, poor Maria. Maria, I feel so bad for you because we're so freaking loud and we interrupt each other, and like this must be so hard for you. Like, you're an angel for being able to surround yourself by us crazy people, right? Like, you say something like that and she feels seen. She feels like, oh, okay. And then and then it's okay. She can forgive you for it. Right? But if there's resistance, not only in maybe changing our ways to include her in and her ways, but is there resistance also to acknowledge it at least so that she feels seen, then she's going to dissociate. She's going to disconnect emotionally so that she can protect herself. So my invitation, I shared with you the whole Bruta theory a couple of weeks ago. My invitation is to maybe in prayer, so God can, so the Holy Spirit can be the one doing this exercise through you. In prayer, ask God to reveal her to you the way he sees her and created her. And that exercise, if you do it collectively with your family, I mean, I think that would be even more powerful because then you can tell each other things that you didn't think about. But I think it may be healing for you too. And like, God, how do you see her? Because she's his daughter too, So if you start thinking of that, and if you start realizing, like, if she's like that with just a family, then the problem is not her. Think about it. If she can get along with other people, then the problem is the family, the system. We go back to the family systems. The family systems has not created a space for her to fit in. And she does not want that danger or opportunity. That's the danger. She does not want to be what you want her to be. She wants to be who she is. And for that, sometimes we get to open up a space that accommodates her. And I think, and if at the beginning you don't feel like doing it for her, do it for your brother that you love so much.
Right.
Yeah. My brother got divorced from my sister because she was my sister by marriage, right? I loved her, and I have two brothers. So my two sisters, we were like a triad, and a force to be reckoned with. I love us. So still to this day, my brother has been divorced for like 7 years. And we were amazing, and still are. We still connect very deeply. And the new wife or partner for whom the relationship was broken, like, I had to do a lot of healing to welcome her. But in my mind, I was like, I have no option. God, you're gonna have to give me the grace, because it's either I love her or I love her. Like, in my value system, family unity is a must. So I knew I was gonna love her. I just had to do a lot of work to get there, right? And I still don't see her the way I see my husband, my brother's ex-wife. And it's okay. It's okay, because there's a space in our family system for her that she doesn't have to occupy the space of my ex-sister-in-law, right? Like, she occupies her own space. And when you come to terms with that, like, it's not what I expected, what I wanted for my brother. And it is what it is. right? So how do I get to love this as much as possible? And how do I get to focus on what is good about her and convey it to her so that she feels welcomed, safe, soothed, and seen?
Okay.
And it's
I'm
such a
happy.
big,
I'm happy I got to do this because my mom sufre every day with this. Every day.
Love
Yeah.
her, love her, love her. And at the beginning, while you're doing your list, te vas a pensar, sí, pero. It's okay. Just focus on the sí and then change, reframe the peros. And you could even visualize, like if you want to take it a step further, visualize yourself like feeling, like remember that visualizations are meant to include all your senses, but also your emotions. And like just feeling like, I like so free and happy that you like hugged her con gusto and that you were genuinely happy to see her and that she wore the trajecito, the little dress for the family thing, and that she looked beautiful and she felt so like she belonged. Like just feel it. And from that place, we go back to what Millet was doing. From that vibration and from that energy state of consciousness and awareness of like, you know, like feeling like you love this woman and you love that she loves, you know, your husband. From that energy, then you address her. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see this through.
Thank you.
I'm confident, very confident that it will change. And she will respond. I assure you, she will respond. She just wants to be loved.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, it's 2:13. So like I
Okay.
know some of you left, and if anybody else needs to leave, by all means, please. Any questions or feedback from this session? So just as
amazing,
a,
Betsy.
what was that? I'm
As
sorry.
always.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
That was amazing as always.
Oh, okay.
I said that was amazing as always.
So just as background information, if I would have been doing psychoanalysis, I would have focused on her. Like, why do you feel that way towards your sister-in-law? Where did that come from? How is this important to you? When was another time that you had a similar situation with another person? Like I would go deeper and deeper and deeper to see what is in her unconscious in regards to this. If I were doing CBT, I would focus on strategies to get her to come more to the family events and get them to interact more, but that didn't necessarily have to be deeply authentic, right? Like I would have focused on how do we solve the problem so that she goes to the parties? Okay, well, you know, just go and apologize and let's do this, right? Like I would have focused on strategy. So here and now, solve the problem at hand. Don't worry about what you feel, your unconscious past. Don't worry about her feelings, whatever. Let's just do this. That would have been CBT. These are some strategies. If from an attachment theory perspective, which I didn't focus on necessarily, I would have focused on like, you know, she lost her dad. She didn't have that primary caregiver. What could that have been like for her? Have you considered da da da? And like even for her, like what kinds of attachments, Ceci, are you used to? Like what does a secure attachment look like? What are the boundaries and non-boundaries, enmeshment, yada yada, right? So I would have probably gone into her own family of origin, Ceci's, and even explored the sister-in-laws. But from a family systems perspective, we focus on the system, like what, so I share a little bit of the sister-in-law, but then also a little bit of the Cuban, you know, enmeshment and closeness and, you know, todo era mejor en Cuba. I don't know if you Cubans have realized that todo lo bueno es cubano. La palma real no es la palma real, es la palma cubana, because eso estaba en Cuba. El café cubano. El pan cubano. Like todo es cubano. Like that's like a total joke that My husband has with some Puerto Rican friends of mine, because la sal, the iodized sal cubana, because it's what they used. And todo,
Arena.
piñato cubano, todo es cubano if the Cubans used it. It's hilarious. So there's also that which I find it fascinating and so cute and funny, and I love it. But my culture is very aligned with the Cuban culture, so it's easy. We're both Caribbean, we're both loud, we're both. But if I were una gringa, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I'd have a hard time. And if I'm South African, I can't even, right? So, you know, so the idea was to consider the different parts of the system and how you all play a part in contributing and then empowering you, because you're the one coming to here. So she's the identified patient. If we were doing family therapy, she would be the black sheep, right? Like the identified patient.
Right.
But the identified patient is usually the reason for which a family comes to therapy, because they're carrying the symptom, but ultimately the symptom is the family's. She's just the one, like she's the sacrificial lamb. She don't be black sheep, she's sacrificial lamb. So just so you know why, like where I was coming from. Any questions? Okay, well, I love you. I'll see you next
Thank you. Feel better.
so much.
Some rest. Don't talk
Thank
anymore.
you, Betsy.
Better. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.